What is going on, Movie Maniacs? I'm Zach, and this is the previews, everybody's favorite part of the movie. Obviously, I'm missing somebody here, but it does not matter because I am here to talk about The Irishman. For those of you who have not heard about this movie yet, it follows Frank Sheeran, aka The Irishman, who was Jimmy Hoffa's right-hand man, and pretty much his involvement with Jimmy Hoffa's death. I'm actually very curious how many of you actually know who Jimmy Hoffa is. I grew up with my dad mainly always talking about Jimmy Hoffa, and I know about him and how powerful he was. He's probably pretty much was arguably in the 50s and 60s the most powerful man in the U.S. next to the President of the United States. So pretty much, it follows Frank and his involvement, which is, I guess to this day, the only conclusive evidence about what actually happened to Jimmy Hoffa. So this movie stars, it's Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and yes, I am so happy to see him now, Joe Pesci. Man, I miss this guy. The guy who went from calling everybody a motherfucker to putting everybody's heads in clamps to a guy who could not swear on screen due to it being a kid's movie, aka Home Alone, who had to censor himself by saying, he was recently in retirement, but actually came out of retirement. I think it's probably been at least 10, 15 years since this guy's been on screen. So, very happy to see him back. He was great, and I just couldn't picture him coming back for anybody else but Martin Scorsese. With me listing off all these amazing actors, that's the first thing I want to truly get into is the acting of this movie. Holy hell, the acting in this movie. First person I want to get into is Al Pacino. This, I feel like, is personally his movie. Even though it is Robert De Niro's story, which I'm not taking that away from Robert De Niro, but holy hell, Al Pacino in this movie. When I look at, I guess mainly Robert De Niro in this movie, Robert De Niro played his Goodfellas role, also directed by Martin Scorsese. He played the badass gangster role, and killed it, absolutely killed it. But when I saw Al Pacino in this movie, I saw Jimmy Hoffa. I did not see Al Pacino in this role. This is Al Pacino's best role since, man, I would say probably Jack and Jill, maybe? Obviously, I'm kidding. But I would say, I put this on par with his both portrayals in Part 1 and Part 2 of Godfather and Scarface. This guy was Jimmy Hoffa. I've seen a bunch of interviews with Jimmy Hoffa, same mannerisms, even same voice tone. He was fantastic. Then also I want to get into Robert De Niro. As I just said, Robert De Niro, this is Robert De Niro's best performance since Heat. And Joe Pesci. I know I praised him so much, but Joe Pesci was great in this movie as well. The other big star of this movie is, of course, Martin Scorsese, the director. You know him, the director of Goodfellas, Wolf of Wall Street, Shutter Island, Gangs of New York, Raging Bull. This guy still has it. The guy is pushing 70, and holy hell, can this guy still direct. For his past two movies, which has been Wolf of Wall Street and this, I have not seen this guy bring out so much adrenaline of any other movie he's created. This guy is off the chain, and I was meaning to look more into it, but I actually read an article saying that he's might be directing or developing a movie about a serial killer with Leonardo DiCaprio. A serial killer from a 70-year-old director. I can't wait. The way the guy was moving the camera and always staying on focus with everything, and him building this world, making you feel like you were back in the 50s and 60s. This mastermind, this legend of a director who has finally, the only one thus far, someone of his stature coming out and saying that he hates Marvel movies? Oh, thank you, Scorsese. Thank you. I finally have someone who sticks by my side whenever I have that debate with someone, because one of the few movie maniacs that still follow this channel, you guys know I hate Marvel movies, so that's another plus I want to give to Scorsese. Next to the acting and the fact this movie's directed by Martin Scorsese, the biggest grasp that this movie's trying to bring people into is this de-aging software. Because I don't know how many of you guys have seen Al Pacino, especially Robert De Niro, and especially Joe Pesci. The way they look these days, man, they look rough. They look really rough. They put Betty White to shame. Like, they are old. They are looking old. And I will say, I think this software really, really delivers. I will say, towards the beginning of the movie, because pretty much this movie is about Robert De Niro's character explaining his entire life. And it starts up at the very beginning, when I say when he's probably in his 20s. And it was still Robert De Niro playing that role. There was that scene that I was looking at, and it did look, this de-aging technology did look a little weird. I only watched it in 1080p. I actually talked to a friend of mine who watched this movie in 4K, and he told me it looked really, really weird at times, which I can definitely picture because it's 4K. But I must say, watching it from a 1080p standpoint, this software was groundbreaking. I tip my hat off to Scorsese for that. This de-aging technology is a great stepping stone of what can be accomplished with these movies, especially trying to bring back these great legendary actors who definitely are old and they say they don't have it anymore. But this technology, I feel, is a great stepping stone to bring these actors back. From this point, let's get into the story. When it comes to biopics specifically, the biggest thing I want to accomplish when it comes to a biopic, and I'll even relate it to books, when it comes to even autobiographies, I want it to be as accurate as possible. But this is an unsolved case, and this entire movie was based on of what Frank Sheeran told somebody. This is the mob, people. This is the mob. You don't know how accurate these stories are. But if this story is as accurate as it can be, which I believe Scorsese would not make this movie if it wasn't at least accurate to a degree, this is a pretty realistic outcome for Jimmy Hoffa. It's pretty realistic. It makes sense. Which leads me into the cons of this movie, which I just talked about the accuracy of this movie. Because when I watch a biopic, I want it to be accurate. But just not knowing if this is 100% accurate just leaves a sour taste in my mouth. But this con leads into a pro. Pretty much this con that I had leads into the very last shot of this movie, which sets it perfectly. And I feel like why it's okay to think the way that I do and acknowledge all the doubters that may believe that this isn't the way it happened. But Scorsese knows that. And the way this movie ends was beautiful. It hit me. It absolutely hit me. I know I even read a few reviews here and there saying that they hated the ending. It was just so abrupt, but it was supposed to be abrupt. The other con. This movie's 3.5 hours. And holy shit, does it feel like that. I actually stuck through it for 3 hours without leaving the room, without looking at my phone. I literally paused it to take a piss. And I thought it was getting very towards the end. I thought it was. But then I paused it, and there was still 45 minutes to 30 minutes left in the movie. And I was like, are you kidding me? I sit there and say it is extremely long, but can I really picture anything being really cut out of this movie? Not really. It's weird. It's a very weird thing. I feel this movie should have been broken up into episodes on Netflix, almost like The Hateful Eight did, as being the extended cut of the movie being 4 separate hour episodes. And I feel like that would have worked in this movie's benefit. This movie is extremely world building. That's another plus I want to give to Scorsese, is building this world. It was very authentic. It was very real. Some of these some of these, I guess I'll say landmarks, it's Scorsese. That was what I was telling myself, and I think I should be telling you guys. It's Scorsese. The guy knows how to build story, knows how to build character, knows how to build environment. And this movie does not shy away from that all. And I did some research on some of these sites when all these big events happened in this Jimmy Hoffa era. And they're pretty legit. And I guess I'm leading to my final gripe of this movie. The final one. No Joe Pesci freakouts. This guy has come out of retirement for 10 plus years. Guy's been moving for 10 or plus years, and for him going back into a Scorsese film, which he got famous for freaking out and bitching everybody out and being brutal to them, there's not one scene where he freaks out in. And it really, really, really disappointed me. Not take away from his performance. His performance was fantastic. I want to see one Joe Pesci freak out. I want to see one. You got flashes of it, I will say that. Some people will say, oh, there might be this scene, this scene. I got flashes, but I'm seeing, especially Goodfellas and Casino, it did not come full throttle from Joe Pesci. And I thought if there would be, for him coming back, I figured probably part of his contract for coming back into to film was to have a freak out scene with Scorsese, and I did not get that. And it was very saddening. So overall, I thought this was a great movie. It's very brutal. It's very real. The dialogue is so real. Just a mob movie with Scorsese's name on it. This is what I want from it. And with great performances from amazing actors, legendary actors. So I'm gonna give this movie 4 painted houses out of 5. That's it for this week, Movie Maniacs. If you haven't already, hit subscribe, give us a thumbs up, hit that bell icon so you don't miss anything. And Matt and I, hopefully, will see you on the next episode of The Previews.